as the massive ETFs now come into the crosshairs, as these all have unallocated on and off flywheel. Yes, and once again, the smaller and less obscure silver market provides us the better window into what the same actors are doing in the ring-fenced, much larger gold ETF, GLD, that big monolith. I recall discussing this subject back in February, and where we focused on we all remember the implausible thousands of tons of additions that were added following the EFP blow-up back in March and April, where there was no physical around, and suddenly everyone wanted it. Where was the only place to go? You couldn't buy it on the physical market, so you went to the ETFs. Oh my goodness, they seem to be able to be loading hundreds and thousands of tons in when we knew there wasn't any. So obviously that created an issue, and that's when BlackRock issued a warning, and that was in February 2021, I remember, as the silver short squeeze drove silver into the 30. Bearing in mind these guys have bet against that. And what was absolutely clear to every silver wholesaler and bank was that this was a warning. This was a warning to bail out the SLV's authorized participants. These are the APs who work with the trust to create new share baskets of the ETFs. And I remember the wording was pretty clear. We may be unable to acquire enough of the metal, and that SLV may suspend or restrict the issuance of baskets of shares. I mean, give your head a shake. I mean, this announcement followed an emergency meeting with these authorized participants unable to supply. And at the time, there was a 1 week window where 1.5 billion in physical silver inflows were recorded into the trust. And this is when the warning came in, because it clearly wasn't coming in. And going to market, really, this is the point that should be made. Going to market to obtain this amount of silver would have driven silver to somewhere between 50 and 80 bucks overnight. But worse, for the market making insiders betting against silver, such a bid-only move would have triggered in fresh demand in sufficient size to bankrupt the too big to fail authorized participants. And of course, this embarrassing BlackRock admission to not supply silver cuts the same way. This is a point I'm trying to make for the much harder to read gold ETF. And specifically talk about GLD in this case, as some Swiss ETFs are actually physically backed, and as are Sprott, etc. But I mean, I'm specifically focusing on GLD and how it interconnects with the COMEX. But what it exposed was that these so-called investment hedging ETF vehicles do not represent or discover a real supply-demand price. Otherwise, you'd be forced to go and fill those vaults. Now, what it exposed was that the on and off ramps are not physical. And as soon as the rubber met the road and the physical demand meant the unallocated gold and silver position representing these gold and silver baskets had to be turned into real physical bars for delivery, and the APs, the LBMA gatekeepers, refused to go to market to buy the physical, which would have seen a substantially higher real supply-demand gold and silver price emerge. That's supposed to be what markets are supposed to do. And we also know that while the gold and silver bars are signed off as existing, that they're also allowed to be bet against, openly short-sold, and essentially, what is that? Rehypothecated. But here's where it gets really interesting, and I don't think anyone's focusing on this. The unallocated flywheel that has allowed the related gold ETFs to be managed by the authorized participants using these holdings to bet against GLD prices from rising above their managed COMEX pricing envelope is going to have to be backed by physical. This is a huge deal. This will be a game changer, and it'll allow the funds who must use ETFs, these hedge funds that come in and out all the time, but usually get flipped out again because, by the way, you can play with that game. But if it was physically backed and they were really gaining exposure to gold and silver, and then you would see a real uncapped return. They would get a real uncapped return on these investments as those prices rose as these funds came in to buy and were not rinsed back out again. Now, once let loose from being suppressed by the freshly compliant authorized participants managing these baskets, it's going to make these instruments very attractive to those captive funds who are unable to gain exposure to physical bullion.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.